gonna make me go get a cup of coffee in a minute. Thank you very much. I need that coffee. You ready? You ready again? Margaret. I'll see it. Who was this? I thought it was you, man. I didn't even look to see. This old man killed. Over there with you, Mark. Him, he got the hook and everything. He got everything I was supposed to be getting. Everybody makes grandma look that. Come on. So big, I'll get this sucker down and pull out that goddamn thing and it killed me. Got it. Come on. Come.
Does all the hard work to keep the policies to find out which ones is correct. So it kind of makes sense that I'm doing this.
Anything else down there?
Just this old Chris.
Does that look like Vincent Van Gogh?
Vincent Van Gogh.
Oh, he got me in his car. Come help me get me up. Right here.
It's good to find what you're missing. It feels good to Geico. It's a little stale.
You think?
Don't leave me. Thank you. I'm gonna go get that motherfucker. Oh, shit. You got me. Who was that? Who's that with that Gatling gun? Me. How did you kill me?
works hard to find you the right home insurance. So I'm here working hard for you too.
Anything else down there?
Just this old Chris.
Who's the top?
Slow. It feels good to
There's
find
one
you
on the
missing.
roof?
It feels good to Geico.
Could have said there was a dog on the roof. I
I
looked
feel-
out for that.
And I feel too hard on the roof. It just killed me. It ain't killed me, but it's gonna kill me. I'm in a life. I think he went off the roof. Cause I was coming down there. It's all good. First game of the day. My squad is being honey. He's playing the shit out of this. Damn. He was playing the hell out of that.
Yep.
Yeah, especially for my first one for the day.
Everybody's knocked out.
Mark. protecting my brother. Oh. You went right past and snatched my shit. I don't do you like that. I leave it
Right, right back. Probably reloaded the gun I was already carrying.
Damn, you got me, man. I've been thinking it's you. I'm looking up at the top. I got to stop. So I guess I'm coming back to you. And I didn't even have my little oh my God. Thank God. Oh, well, look at it. 5-minute escort.
Okay. What? There it is. Okay. right?
Uh-huh.
I'm not allowed to have Halo because I got keys. I know. Last time I ate all.
Every civilization has a creation story. Every culture has tried to answer that ancient question that rises with the sun and sleeps with the stars. Where do we come from? But long before the Bible, long before the Torah, and long before Greek philosophers walked the marble steps of Athens, Africa had already written its own Genesis. A Genesis not carved in a single book, but scattered across deserts, mountains, rivers, and stars. This was a continent where knowledge was not just spoken, it was encoded. Where creation was not merely narrated, it was revealed. Where spirit, science, and symbolism were one. Africa's Genesis was older than parchment, older than temples, older than language itself. It lived in the spiraling sand drawings of the Dogon, in the sacred geometry of Kemet, in the chants of the Zulu, in the stories whispered by the Shona, in the rhythms of the Yoruba, in the cosmic maps of the Berber, and in the dream universes of the San. These were not myths. They were metaphysical blueprints, sophisticated systems designed to explain the beginning of everything. Before atoms, before equations, before telescopes, Africa used symbols to describe the birth of light. Before physics named vibration, Africa described the world that shapes reality. Before science spoke of expansion, Africa spoke of the egg that cracked open the cosmos. Before psychology defined consciousness, Africa taught that awareness is the first spark of existence. Nothing here was accidental. Nothing here was primitive. These stories were not attempts to imagine the universe. They were attempts to translate it. Long before the world divided spirit from science, Africa understood that creation was both. And now, as we retrace these ancient paths, the oldest Genesis rises again. A story written not in ink, but in eternity. Africa's creation stories are older than scripture, older than carved tablets, older than ink. They belong to the breath, to rhythm, to memory carried in the bones of continents. When people say Genesis, they imagine a single beginning, one story, one moment, one divine spark. But Africa has never believed in one beginning. Africa remembers many, dozens of creation stories scattered across deserts, islands, mountains, forests, and savannas. Each unique, each sacred, and yet all beating with the same underlying pulse. It is as if the continent carried one cosmic blueprint, one metaphysical pattern expressed through countless voices. And now, as we open the lost book of Genesis, Africa's original Genesis, we begin with the names the world rarely hears, but should never forget. Africa did not have one Genesis. It had dozens. But some of the deepest came from places the world rarely hears. In the far reaches of the Afar lands, creation began with Wake and Yah, two forces whose union shaped existence itself. In the Berber and Amazigh world, ancient desert winds whispered the names Siwa and Tanit, guardians of life, fertility, and sacred cycles. Across the waters of the Comoros Islands, the people spoke of Mungumku, the great source who breathed order into chaos. In Somalia, creation rose through Iebi, also called Wak, the sky spirit whose presence filled the world before form emerged. Among them and the people, everything began with Mangala, the cosmic seed holding the universe tightly within itself. The Luba of Central Africa honored Vidye Mukulu, the distant creator who shaped the first beings. The Lozi of Southern Africa called Oponiambe, the maker who withdrew to the heavens after forming humanity. In South Sudan, the Dinka revered Nialik, the sky creator whose breath became destiny. Their neighbors, the Nuer, whispered the name Quartz, the divine spirit that fills all things. And in the lands of the Shona, creation began with Mwari, the unseen force that shapes the world through rain, light, and breath. Across deserts, forests, islands, and savannas, creation had many names, but one pulse, one rhythm beneath the differences, like many rivers flowing back to an ancient hidden spring. And once you hear that rhythm, you begin to notice how every part of Africa was telling the same cosmic story in its own language, its own poetry, its own sacred code. Now we move deeper into the great civilizations whose names echo in history books, temples, and legends. Their creation stories are better known, but they too follow the same ancient pattern. Kemet spoke of Atum rising from the waters, self-created, self-shaped, standing upon the first mound of existence. Nubia honored Amun of Napata, the invisible wind whose breath stirred the first spark of creation. Ethiopia remembered Exiabher, the divine force whose presence illuminated the universe. The Oromo praised Waka, the eternal sky who watched over heaven and earth. The Maasai bowed to Enkai, the giver of cattle, rain, and life. The Kikuyu lifted their hands to Nai, the creator who dwelled upon the sacred mountain. The Yoruba knew Olodumare, source of Ace, the power that makes creation possible. The Igbo called the source Chukwu, the great spirit, beyond form, beyond time. The Akan honored Nyame, the shining one above all. The Iwe spoke of Mawu and sea, twin forces balancing moonlight and destiny. The Fon remembered Mawulisa, the divine unity of sun and moon. The Congo taught of Nzambi Mpungu, the creator who shaped the world and governs the Kalunga line between realms. The San whispered of Kang, whose dreaming mind spun worlds into being. And the Zulu remembered Unkulunkulu, the first ancestor who emerged to set life into motion. So many names, so many languages, so many stories spanning thousands of miles and thousands of years. And yet, despite this vastness, despite this overwhelming diversity, something remarkable appears. Every one of them begins the same way. Before there was anything, there was water. Before breath, before light, before form, there was the dark, eternal, trembling presence of the deep. In African cosmology, this is not metaphor, it is the beginning. Water is not an element, it is the origin. It is the womb that holds all possibility. In every corner of the continent, the oldest creation stories begin not with land, nor man, nor flame, but with the sea, with rivers, with flood, with rain, with moisture forming memory. Africa's first gods, spirits, and forms did not emerge from fire or sky, they rose from the waters. Because Africa begins with birth, and water is the mother of birth. Across cultures, oceans are not obstacles. They are the spaces between one world and the next, between spirit and matter, sleep and waking, void and form. In ancient Egypt, it began with Nun, the infinite waters that held the unformed universe. Nun was not chaos, but potential. In Nun, everything that would ever exist slept, waiting for the first thought, the first breath, the first light. The god Atum did not create Nun. He rose from it, emerging atop the Ben mound, shaped by will and awareness. But before him, the waters were all there was, still, silent, sacred. In Yoruba cosmology, those primordial waters were ruled by Olokun, the keeper of the deepest sea. Olokun holds the mysteries of wealth, creation, and the unknown. Before Orisha could form the earth, they stood upon water. And it was Olokun's power that made foundation possible. The waters were not merely background. They were the canvas upon which all life was painted. The Swahili of East Africa call it Bahari Lauhai, the ocean of life. For them, life flows like waves. Creation is not a moment, but a tide. The ocean is both mother and memory, something you emerge from and something return to. Among the Zulu, the story begins with reeds. Yes, reeds. But those reeds do not grow in dust. They rise from water. According to Zulu tradition, humanity first emerged from a bed of reeds that had grown out of the primordial flood. From the moisture of the deep, life reached upward. This is not just symbolic. It reflects an understanding of life's reliance on water, the quiet reverence for the fluid womb. For the Somali, the world was formed when the sky and rain united. The heavens wept, and the tears kissed the dust, awakening it. From this union came fertility, land, and form. It was not the sky alone, but moisture that brought creation to life. A theme mirrored in other Cushitic traditions. The world was not spoken into being. It was watered into bloom. The Afar people, whose sacred ancestors include Wake and Ya, describe creation as emerging from moisture and steam, from breath carried on the mist of an unseen realm. It is humidity, the invisible water in the air, that begins their version of the cosmic unfolding. It is the quiet element, the soft force, that becomes the origin. In the highlands of Mali, the Dogons speak of the cosmic egg, not resting in space but floating in the celestial waters. Before Amma cracked the egg to create twins, time, and form, that egg drifted silently in water. The waters were not hostile, they were sacred amniotic fluid, holding the blueprint of the universe. The Lozi people remember a flood, not as a punishment, but as a prelude. In their telling, the world emerged after the floodwaters receded. Their god Nyambi brought order only after the earth was washed clean, shaped by the tides. The flood was not a destruction, it was purification. A necessary cleansing before creation could be built. Even in the islands of Madagascar, stories tell of Razanahari, the divine spirit whose creative work began inside the sea. The ocean was not apart from creation. It was its birthplace. Life rose from the sea as it rose from thought, shaped not in a sudden explosion, but in a slow unfolding like waves reaching toward the shore. So why does Africa always begin with water? Because water is everything before the thing. It is the blank canvas, the untouched soil, the undivided cell. Water is possibility. It is the space between endings and beginnings. And in African cosmology, creation was never about domination. It was about emergence. Africa does not begin with a sword or a thunderbolt. Africa begins with the womb, with the pulse of water, with moisture forming memory. As the narration flows, Africa begins with water because Africa begins with birth. Before light, there was the womb of existence. And that womb was never empty. Before there was land to walk on, before trees reached toward the sun, before even the sound of thunder, there was light. Not physical light, not the glow we see with our eyes, but the first awareness, a pulse in the dark, a flicker of realization. Across African cosmologies, light is not simply the sun, it is consciousness itself. The moment when creation becomes self-aware, when the universe, still unshaped, recognizes its own potential. In African thought, creation does not begin with objects. It begins with awareness. The Dogon of Mali described the beginning with Amma, the supreme creative force, resting in the cosmic egg, floating in primordial waters. Inside that egg, all things were held, but they were asleep, still, waiting. And then Amma cracked the egg, and in that rupture, light poured forth. It wasn't just illumination. It was the birth of consciousness, the beginning of twins, of motion, of symmetry. That first light was not just the start of visibility. It was the start of intention. In ancient Kemet, this awakening takes the form of Ra, the sun god, emerging from the darkness of noon. He did not rise into an already existing sky. He became the sky's light. He called himself into being, shining through the void, and from his illumination came all other life. Ra was not only light, Ra was awareness taking form. Among the Akan of West Africa, it is said that Niamey shone before anything else did. Before the earth was shaped, before humans were made, there was Niamey's light stretching across the emptiness. His radiance didn't just illuminate the world, it brought the idea of the world into focus. Through Niamey, creation remembered itself. In Ethiopia, the divine force is Exyabher, whose breath carried light into the universe. It was not a command, not a weapon, but a gentle exhale, a whisper that became a blaze. Light came not with thunder, but with presence. The light Exyabher breathed was not just brightness, it was conscious being, filling the fabric of space with intention. In the Congo traditions of Central Africa, creation is often described through the Kalunga line, the threshold between the physical and spiritual worlds. And it is said that lightning was the first force to cross that line. Not fire, not form, light. A flash across the great river of existence. It marked the boundary between death and life, thought and flesh. That bolt was more than electricity. It was divine consciousness breaking into time. For the Kosan, among the oldest cultures on earth, creation was not commanded, but dreamed. Kan, the first consciousness, dreamed the world into being. And as he dreamed, light entered his mind's eye, piercing the dark of timeless sleep. That light, warm, golden, undefined, became the first sign of reality for me. The word was not spoken. It was remembered. And that memory shone before shape. In every tradition, light is not decoration. It is not the end result. It is the beginning. Light in African cosmology equals consciousness. It is not something you see. It is something you are. To shine is to awaken. To create light is to realize existence. This idea flips the Western model of creation on its head. Where others may begin with form, command, or battle, Africa begins with awareness. Light does not chase away darkness. It wakes it up. It is not an enemy of the void. It is its next evolution. The first light is not just the sun. It is self-awareness. It is the universe recognizing itself in stillness and saying, I am. And from that I am, all other things follow. So when Africa speaks of light, it is not telling you how to see, it is telling you how to remember. In the African Book of Creation, once consciousness awakens, it does not sculpt reality with hands or hammer. It begins with something more primal, more powerful, breath. And with that breath comes sound, a whisper, a hum, a command that shapes the formless into form. In African cosmology, the universe is not built from brick and bone. It is built from vibration. Sound is the architect of reality. Before clay, before tree, before sun, there is utterance. And utterance is not speech alone. It is intention turned into frequency. Across the continent, in dozens of traditions, creation unfolds not through war or accident, but through sound codes, spoken breath, and vibrational force. Among the Yoruba, the creative spark comes from ash, the divine power to command, to activate, to make things happen. Ash is not just energy. It is spoken energy, power carried through the word. It flows through Emi, the breath, the divine breath within all living beings. To speak is not just to communicate, it is to create. In ancient Kemet, breath and word are sacred technologies. The God's breath is known as Ka, the vital force, the essence of being. And through who the divine utterance, reality is shaped. Who is not language. It is the vibration behind language. It is said that Atum brought forth creation by naming it. His speech did not describe the world. It built it. The Dogon people tell of Nomo, the first beings created by Ama. But Nomo were not just deities, they were vibrational entities connected to sound and water. Nomo were said to speak the world into balance, using coded speech, tonal vibration, and rhythm to maintain harmony. Even the act of descent, when Nomo came to Earth, was a sonic event, a tuning of the cosmic instrument. In Akan tradition, the power of the word is called Enkom, speech that doesn't just express but shapes reality. Prophecy, ritual invocation, naming ceremonies all carry the weight of creation. A name is not random, it is destiny. An utterance, when spoken in the right state, becomes structure. Thought becomes flesh. The Nuer of South Sudan speak of Quat, the divine spirit whose very breath animates the living. Quat is breath, and breath is life. To breathe is to embody spirit. And the world itself was animated not by molding matter, but by divine respiration. Among the Dinka, a closely related Nilotic people, the story is similar. The creator shaped clay, yes, but it remained still until divine breath entered it. That breath gave life. That breath was not mere oxygen, it was a spiritual spark, moving through lungs and into soul. In Igbo cosmology, the concept of Mo bridges breath and spirit. It is the force that hovers, animates, and directs. Mo is not just spirit as concept, it is breath with purpose. The act of speaking, especially during ritual, is seen as summoning, not suggestion, but actualization. And in Ethiopia, the term nafus signifies the breath of life. It is the same breath God gave Adam. But before that, it was the breath that called the world forward. Nafos is both wind and whisper, the animating force behind what we see, the invisible voice pushing reality forward. Each of these cultures speaks a different tongue, but they share the same song, creation through sound. Not violence, not randomness, but rhythm, breath, command. Africa teaches that the universe is not built from matter, but from sound. Breath animates, word shapes, vibration gives form. This is why ritual matters. This is why naming holds power. This is why silence is sacred. Not the absence of noise, but the space between notes. Because in African thought, to speak is to summon, and to breathe with the intention is to co-create with the source. So when the first breath echoed across the new universe, it didn't just fill space, it formed it. Not just a whisper in the dark, but the blueprint of reality itself. Once the breath moved, once the sound gave shape to vibration, came the first beings, not conquerors, not destroyers, not jealous gods. It is balanced by design. These first entities born of sound and light were not tyrants. They were architects, sculptors of rhythm, weavers of breath into form. The Dogon people of Mali speak of the Nomo, the twin beings born of Mars, cosmic egg. They were part spirit, part water, part sound. The Nomo were not just creators, they were harmonizers, sent to organize the universe after an initial rupture of imbalance. They introduced speech, language, and the laws of symmetry. Their descent to earth was said to have restored, but when people broke that harmony, separation followed. Khan was not angry. He was disappointed. His creation was a song interrupted. But his intent was never to punish, only to restore the rhythm. They can tell of humans who descended from the sky, not as sinners or subjects, but as extensions of the divine. These beings were born with the knowledge of balance and the duty to maintain it. The earth was not a punishment, it was a responsibility. In Igbo tradition, Chukwu did not create humans in a rush of dominations, but in stages, carefully, with clay and soul. Bodies were shaped, spirits were breathed, and destinies were woven. Even after forming humans, Chukwu remains distant, not as a threat, but as a silent witness, trusting creation to uphold itself. The Congo cosmology teaches that souls cross the Kalunga line, the boundary between the world of the living and the spirit realm. The first beings were those who understood the crossing, who taught humans how to live in rhythm with both realms. Life was never a one-way street. It was a circle, a breath repeated across dimensions. In Somali oral history, the world was created through the union of sky and earth. And from that harmony emerged the first beings, born not in fire or fear, but in balance. They were given roles, not thrones. Their power was measured by how well they maintained cosmic agreement. The Shona remember ancestors shaped deep within sacred caves, carved in darkness, formed by unseen hands. These were not warriors of conquest. They were carriers of wisdom, keepers of memory, and mediators between worlds. And among the Baba, creation was often guided by Tanit, the feminine force of fertility, moon cycles, and protection. She shaped not to rule, but to align. Her presence echoed in the stars, the harvest, the womb, and the tides. So we return to the truth so often forgotten. In Africa, the first beings are not tyrants. They are architects, sculptors of balance, rhythm, and breath. They did not conquer creation. They tuned it. All across Africa, one symbol rises again and again. Not a sword, not a flame, but a curve. A roundness, a spiral, a swelling mound breaking the surface of ancient waters. The cosmic egg and the rising mound are not just metaphors, they are sacred blueprints encoded in the creation stories of Africa's oldest civilizations. Long before scrolls or scriptures, Africa gave the world its first geometry of Genesis, one rooted not in chaos, but in pattern. Among the Dogon of Mali, creation began inside a cosmic egg, cradled in the silent waters of the void. Within that egg was Ama, the supreme force, and all potential was held in tension. No war, no explosion, just pressure, spiritual, mathematical, divine. When Ama cracked the egg, the universe unfolded in spirals, in pairs, in twins. Everything emerged in balance, male and female, light and dark, motion and stillness. The Dogon saw the egg as the original code, not just of life, but of order itself. The Mande and Bambara traditions hold a similar seed, literally. Their creation stories speak of seeds planted inside the egg. These seeds did not burst into flame. They grew slowly, rhythmically, and from them came the fundamental elements of matter, spirit, time, and space. Creation was not a clash. It was a cultivation. In Kemet, ancient Egypt, the story tells of Nun, the primeval waters, and from it, the Ben rose. A small mound rising quietly from the deep. On that mound stood Atum, the first god, who then began the work of shaping the world. The Ben was the navel of the cosmos, not a battlefield, but a birthplace. The Congo cosmology carries the sacred symbol of the Dikinga, a perfect circle with 4 quadrants representing birth, life, death, and rebirth. At the center of this circle lies the origin, a rising point from the water, the source of time and direction. The circle is both egg and mound, both seed and cycle. The Akan of West Africa speak of the universe as a cosmic egg too, one that does not explode but cracks with intention. From within, Niami sends forth light and thought, rhythm and breath. The egg is not just a shell, it is a temple, the boundary between the seen and the unborn. The island of Madagascar, ancient creation stories speak of Razanahari, the divine source who shaped the earth by lifting it from the sea. The earth did not fall from the sky. It rose, like a breast from water, sacred and nourishing. The rising mound became the first land, the place where life could stand and begin. For the lazy people of southern Africa, the world emerges after a great flood. The waters, sacred and cleansing. recede to reveal a mound, the first landform. On it, the divine begins to shape creatures and elements. That mound is not a remnant, well, it is a revelation. And in the Maasai cosmology, Enkai, the divine force, lifted the first land out of water with Ka. Creation did not fall. It was raised like a gift, like an altar. From Mali to Madagascar, Egypt to Ethiopia, this symbolism is unified and clear. Creation rises. It lifts. It unfolds upward from the deep, not through force, but through formation. It is shaped, not shattered. And so the narration declares with unwavering truth, Africa invented the cosmic egg long before Asia. Africa invented the rising mound long before the Bible. Before the mountains, there were mounds. Before the fire, there was form. Before the word, there was the womb. And from it, something sacred began to rise. Beneath the poetry of myth lies the precision of science. In Africa, the ancients didn't separate the sacred from the observable or the spiritual from the measurable. They encoded their knowledge in stories, not to obscure truth, but to protect it, to preserve it across generations. And now, as we decode these stories with modern eyes, something extraordinary emerges. These were never just myths. They were equations, written in the language of myth. The Yoruba concept of Ashe, the invisible force that animates, activates, and commands, maps directly onto what science now calls the quantum field. Ashe is not just energy, it is potential. The moment when thought becomes thing. In quantum theory, this is the realm where particles don't exist until observed, until activated. Ashe was Africa's term for the unmanifest, vibrating just below form, ready to respond to consciousness. The Dogon spirals present in the art, cosmology, and architecture mirror the structure of galaxies, hurricanes, and atomic orbits. These spirals reflect an understanding of rotation and symmetry, foundational to modern physics. And the story of Amma cracking the cosmic egg mirrors, the expansion from a single point. What modern cosmology would later call the Big Bang. In ancient Kemet, the creation story of Atum rising from Nun, the infinite waters, is more than spiritual metaphor. Atum's self-creation and emergence from the deep reflects the idea of a singularity expanding into form, not by explosion, but by intentional emergence. It's a description of cosmic inflation, encoded thousands of years before Hubble ever looked at the stars. The Congo's sacred symbol, the Dikenga, illustrates cyclical time. The idea that life moves in circles, not lines. Birth, life, death, and rebirth. Today, physicists speak of time not as a straight arrow, but as a loop. Entropy, irreversibility, the cyclical behavior of the universe, all hinted at in the quadrants of the Dikenga. The Akan duality, male/female, day/night, seen/unseen, is more than a social philosophy. It mirrors the particle-wave duality at the heart of quantum mechanics. The idea that light and all matter behave as both a wave and a particle, depending on how it is measured. The Akan were not describing people. They were describing existence. Among the San of Southern Africa, trance states are not superstition. They are consciousness experiments. The San enter altered states to retrieve knowledge, heal bodies, and transcend ego. The same outcomes neuroscientists are now mapping in labs. What the San found through dance and drum, modern science now seeks through electrodes and scans. Both the Egyptians and the Dogon preserved star maps so precise that modern astronomers were baffled. The Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, has yet to be fully explained. How did they know its mass, its orbit, its companion? And how did the Egyptians align temples and pyramids with star systems that modern civilization only began to chart thousands of years later? The Berber people of North Africa developed desert astronomy, tracking the cycles of stars, to form seasonal calendars, not just for ritual, but for navigation and agriculture. These calendars synced with the lunar phases, stellar risings, and solstice alignments. And the Bantu spread across Central and Southern Africa, encoded entire agricultural systems into their star calendars. They watched for constellations, prophecy, but for planting cycles. Their stories weren't myth, they were sustainable science. These stories were not superstition. They were equations written in the language of myth. Africa's myths are not answers. They are maps. They are mirrors of the cosmos, encoded in drumbeat, symbol, and song. And now, science is beginning to realize what the ancients already knew. That the line between magic and mathematics was never a line at all. Across Africa's vast landscapes, from the shifting sands of the Sahara to the green highlands of Ethiopia, from the sacred flow of the Nile to the windswept shores of the Atlantic, one truth quietly echoes. Creation follows a pattern. It is not random. It is not chaotic. It is not a clash of gods or a burst of violence. It is a rhythm, repeated across time and told in different tongues, but always humming the same tune. This is the African creation template, a 5-part blueprint that connects more than 40 cultures through one universal story. First, there are the primordial waters, the womb. Everything begins in deep. Before anything exists, there is water, infinite, sacred, still. It is the mother of possibility. From none in Egypt to Olokun in Yoruba law to the ocean of life, Swahili myth, the waters are not feared, they are honored. They hold life before it takes shape. Then comes the first light, consciousness awakening. This is not sunlight. It is not heat. It is the spark of awareness. It is a ray rising, a mastering, exhaled breathing. This light is the moment when the formless begins to recognize itself, the soul of existence opening its eyes. Next is the breath and the sound, the word that shapes. Breath animates, sound sculpts. Through Ashe, Hu, Nomo, and Ankom, creation is spoken, not struck. The universe is not shouted into being, it is sung into harmony. Matter vibrates because intention vibrates first. Then, the first beings emerge, the architects. They do not arrive to conquer. They arrive to arrange, to guide, to balance. Ma'at, Unkulunkulu, Khan, Chukwu. These are the engineers, the sculptors of balance, rhythm, and breath. Finally, the egg cracks. The mound rises. The invisible becomes visible. The sacred lifts from the waters. Whether in the form of the Bemben, the Dikenga, or the earth raised by Nkai, matter now stabilizes. The dream becomes a home. From the start to the deep, from the Nile to the Atlantic, Africa tells the same story through different voices, different names, same pattern. One original Genesis, and it was African.